Welcome everybody to the Valley of Sorrows. Today we're going to be talking about Raph, who is coming to War of the Visions later this week. We'll discuss her kit, her stats, a few comparisons, some equipment, and then hopefully with all that information you're going to know whether or not you'd like to pull for her come this Wednesday. But first, who even is Raph? Well, she is a mace-wielding tank, much in the vein of Snow, Alphonse, and Dialdo. She's magic scaling just like Dialdo, and it means that she attacks against the spirit stat, which is not a big deal because her deal is not to deal damage, it's to protect your team and to keep them alive by soaking up damage. So let's take a look at exactly how Raph is going to be able to do that. We'll talk about durability first, and this is the meat of the video because there's just so much to talk about. And if you're a vegetarian, then this is the tofu of the video. Okay, so Raph has all of the classic tank stats that you would be expecting: HP, defense, high resistances, and all damage barrier. But Raph has some of the new wave techniques for keeping your opponents at bay, including a self-heal when she drops below 50% HP. She has re-raise, a 50% debuff weakening effect, which is again something that lowers the actual efficacy of your opponent's buffs. So if they were to do a 50 defense break, it would only be 25. If it was a 20% imperil, it would only be 10%. So those are actually quite effective at basically keeping your stats in a good space to prevent damage. Otherwise, she also has a 100% counter, which reduces slash damage by 20%. So you put this all together and you have a very buff girl. So Raph is kind of the new standard of tank along with Dialdo and Alphonse, but you will also see some new tanks coming up, including the new Summer Glaciella, who has even more newfangled stuff. So there's always new things coming into the game, but these new like unmitigatable ways of tanking are going to be really important because penetration is such a big deal in War of the Visions. So if you've been playing against Dialdos recently, you'll know exactly how potent Raph can be. And speaking of which, let's talk about her healing power potency, which is quite high because she gets 15% from her mace and then 20% from one of her attacks. And the new VC also has a global upgrade that's coming the week after Raph that has even more healing power for dark units. So basically this means that all of the heals that will target her are going to heal for even more. And that includes her own self heals, and all of her own healing effects will heal herself and others for more. And she actually has a cross-shaped low-range heal on her sub kit that she can use to heal herself and others. And that will be really effective for things like PvE or for Guild Battle too. Otherwise, let's talk about her damage, which isn't much. So anything that you see on this damage checklist are really things that Raph can do for her teammates, because we can't be expecting her to deal very much damage against any targets that have any kind of magic resistance or spirit stat. However, her ability to support your dark team specifically is going to be very good because she has a lot of things that can help them out, including a big AoE that breaks their defense and spirit, so everybody's damage goes up. It also chains, so dark units can actually dark chain and deal even more damage. She also has access to shell removal, which is fairly uncommon, and has a 25% dark imperil, which is massive for the mono dark team. So moving along into the utility category, we can pull up that scouting report as well. And we could have combined these. They're really just all utility for Raph. But continuing on that theme, Raph has access to courage removal. She has a 100% hit attack, and her limit burst will extend chains. So even if the target takes a turn, that chain is still going to increase when the next dark attack hits, allowing your dark units to really bash the fuck out of some units. It's also worth mentioning that Raph has a very high starting AP amount, which means that AP management should not be an issue. And then finally, Raph has access to increase her jump by 1, a very helpful passive depending on the map, but also if you don't want that extra jump, then you'll unfortunately lose out on her agility buff, and her agility is not great without it. Let's move along into the cons for Raph. There really aren't many. The no spirit penetration and only 20% magic resistance penetration from her mace means that she's not going to deal a lot of damage to her opponents. She also has re-raise rather than courage, which I really shouldn't be nitpicking here, but I believe it's easier to remove re-raise than courage in today's meta. And then finally, her AoE resistance is on the smaller end because she can't equip the Brigandine. She gets the greater VC, the greater demon VC and Esper will both help that out. She gets some AoE resistance from her mace and from her master ability, but overall, it's on the lower end compared to some other units. I'll pull up a stat sheet real quick comparing Raph, Dialdo, and Alphonse. They're all very close together in terms of stats. So the biggest factors here are actually what's on their kit. And I think that Raph has a really good balance of support for her team, but also all of the tanky stuff that you should be looking for. And so overall, I think she's the best out of all three of these units, especially when you factor in that she's in the dark element. We can take a moment to talk about some equipment, starting with her TMR, which is pretty solid. It's an accessory that gives some agility, but also has a 2-use ability to give jump +1 and increased AP, which is always nice to have those kind of TMRs for things like PvE or tuning on specific maps for auto PvP. Her mace is something that we can farm this week. It's very good. Everybody should just build a magic version of it. This is her main source of AoE resistance, and as I said, she also gets 5% from her master ability. So let's wrap this video up by talking about whether or not you should be pulling for Raph. And yes, she is a very good pull. And even in this crunch, she's arguably one of the most important, if not the most important unit of all of the ones that are coming, because she is somebody that enables a team, and Dark is certainly at the top of the meta in JP. So it is very important that if you play that element, or you have designs to play that element, that you do pick her up. Now, of course, she will rerun, but this is likely the best time to get her, especially considering the the road to worldwide buff. However, if you are in a tough spot or you want another unit more, at the end of the day, you have to pull for who you really like. You can always wait, but really this is the time to get her, and you will get a ton of use out of her. Even if you get her later, you will still get a ton of use out of her. She's just that good. Otherwise, I hope this video was useful for you, and if it was, let me know in the comments down below, and let me know if you're going to be pulling for Raph or if you will be going for any other units. Otherwise, I'll see you all soon enough in another video. Thanks for watching.